Welcome back to another episode of the One Man's Journey podcast. Today, I'm lucky enough to have Patrick Tromley on with me. I've been following him a while on social, puts out a lot of hardcore content, and I absolutely love the direction that he's taken his stuff, and we've been communicating back and forth for a couple months now. He's a family man, he's a mindset coach, and really what he said he focuses on is getting people out of complacency and into alignment with their purpose. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Patrick. And if you want to take over and tell your story, let's hear it.
Absolutely. Thank you. So start from the beginning here. So in 2006, I graduated college, went right into the mortgage industry, was a wholesale account executive for about a year and a half with Washington Mutual. And then 2008 happened. And I think you know what happened there, but with the financial crisis and the mortgage meltdown, WAMU didn't make it long. And so I was a year and a half into my career. I made six figures the first year out of college. I thought I was the man, right? 22, making six figures, low expenses. Thought I was the man. Then got humbled real quick, had to scramble and find a new place to rebuild my business again. And then that was with Home Savings of America. So I was there for about 18 months, rebuilt my business, became a top producing account executive, and then was actually promoted to regional manager and ran the top producing region for Home Savings of America. And then about, like I said, 18 months into that, the feds came in again and shut us down there. So wasn't looking good there, after the first two places I went to work out of college, getting shut down by the feds is not an ideal situation for anybody. So I had to figure out what I was going to do. Went to a credit union as a wholesale account executive. Was not a good decision. Credit unions aren't mortgage companies. They don't operate like that. So it was a struggle for about a year there. Luckily, my wife was working at the time and she was able to support me. So I was served a big dose of humble pie there, really going from living high on the hog to now relying on my wife to really provide for us. And that was hard for me because as a man, I believe one of our primary roles is to provide for the family. And I wasn't able to do that. So next step was I left the credit union, went to another mortgage company that was opening up a wholesale division, helped them build that from the ground up, was able to rebuild my business, became top producing account executive again there. And then I really wanted to expand and really get closer to working with the customer directly, because as a wholesale account executive, you work with the intermediary, a broker there, but I wanted to help the people directly. So I had my best year ever in, I want to say it was 2016. And then I was like, you know what, let's go be retail. So I went to work direct with the consumer, was not nearly as successful as I expected to be, was not nearly as successful as I was as an account executive. And so I started looking at ways to supplement the income. So I started looking at investing, wholesaling, flipping, that kind of thing. And so I was doing both of those for about a year and a half. And then I cut bait finally with the loan officer gig and went full-time into investing and did all right. Was able to support the family. Wasn't able to reach that level of success that I wanted though. And as part of my process or part of my journey through that, I hired mentors. And one of my mentors really opened my eyes to what my purpose is, because as an account executive and a loan officer, I was always chasing that dollar. It was always about making money. It was about that next deal, being flashy, living high on the horse, high on the hog, that kind of thing. And when my mentor, he really just kind of slapped me across the face, was like, dude, you're fucking up. You're not listening to your conscience. That's why you're not fulfilled. That's why you're not happy with what you're doing, even though you have a decent level of success. And so that really kind of made me reevaluate what I was doing, how I was operating, what I was focusing on. And I started listening to my conscience and what it was telling me to do and how it was telling me to act and those kind of things. And really, when I started aligning my thoughts and my habits and my energy with what my conscience was telling me, that's when I had the huge epiphany of, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be going this way and listening to my conscience. And really what my conscience was telling me was to be the best individual I could be for my family, right? I needed to step up and be a better individual, a better man, a leader, a husband, and a dad for my family, because I was like a lot of guys where I was really focused on me, what I wanted, how I felt, what I wanted to do. And it wasn't like I was throwing my kids to the wayside or anything like that, but I wasn't putting their needs and their desires ahead of what I wanted to do. So really having that epiphany that it's not about me, it's about who I need to be for my family, that was a game changer for me. And then that was about 18 months ago. And ever since then, I've been working every single day to get 1% better than I was the day before. And that has led to me completely changing in the last 18 months from that selfish man child I was, focused on my own self. I was squishy. I didn't have any discipline really, right? And it showed in my physique. It showed in my mindset. It was pretty obvious. Now looking back, at the time it wasn't, but looking back, it was pretty obvious that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do, and I didn't have the discipline that I needed. So over these last 18 months, I have completely changed. Like I said, I am now a high level, high value individual to my family, to my clients, to my business, and really everybody that I interact with. My goal is to be a servant leader. So I put everybody's needs ahead of my own. And through that, I actually get contentment. I get joy. I get pleasure out of really putting my needs and wants in the back seat and putting them in the front seat so that I can serve them best. And through this process, I've built a mindset that I can't be broken now at this point. Before, some little shit would happen and I'd lose my shit and was not in control of my emotions. I was very immature. And now, and you've seen what's happened over the last few months. My wife has had some crazy stuff going on with her seizures, and she's now apparently at age 44, you can catch epilepsy. So we're dealing with that now. And had this happened, 19 months ago, even 2 years ago, I would have lost my shit. My kids would not have had a stable force during this time. And now I'm able to be that rock, that emotional rock, that lighthouse that's constantly standing there, sending my signals, shooting out that light for everybody to gravitate towards. And through that process of building the mindset, I'm in the best physical shape I've ever been in. I'm 205 pounds and I'm about 7% body fat. I turn 40 next week. So my opinion is the external appearance. So your body is a direct reflection of your internal state. So because my mindset was out of whack, because I wasn't disciplined and I was a mess mentally, my body reflected that, and I was squishy, was starting to grow a little bit of man titties, belly was folding over the belt kind of thing. And again, now I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. So my goal now is to push people to their highest potential, because that's what our families deserve, right? They deserve us operating at the highest we can, and that's mentally, physically, and emotionally. So I push people to really listen to their conscience and align with it, because when you do that, everything changes, right? And I believe our conscience is the authentic voice of God. So when you listen to what God has planned for you and you act according to that, great things happen. And so these last 18 months, it's been a huge transformation mentally more than anything. And my life has completely changed. My business is taking off. I have more time. I'm a better dad and a better husband. And really, I just want people to do the same thing that I've done because of the impact I've seen it has on my family. And a good example that I have is my youngest son is 6. Excuse me. He almost every day he will come charging into my office right around between 4 and 5, and want to go to the park. And for the longest time, I'd be like, yeah, okay, let's see. And then we kind of go sit on the couch and I'd hang out and really not go to the park too often. But now, unless it's raining, every time he comes into the park, or every time he comes into my office and he has to go to the park, I'm like, yep, go grab your shoes. And you see his face light up and he gets so stoked, so excited, like, yeah, let's go. And takes off running, gets his shoes, and we go to the park. And it's, 30 minutes to an hour of my time. But for him, it's everything. And before, you would see him with this disappointed look on his face, his head would drop, shoulders would drop, and he'd walk out and wait for me to go sit on the couch with him. But now it's night and day. He's so much happier. All 3 of my boys are much happier. They are better behaved, and they listen to us more. And it's really because when I was talking the talk and not actually backing it up with my actions, I was being a hypocrite, right? Do this. Essentially, it's one of those things where it's listen to what I say. Don't pay attention to what I do. Right. And now I'm actually walking the walk. I'm backing up what I say and what I preach with how I act and what I do. And that has been a game changer, not only for them, but for my wife as well. Right now, I'm showing up as a high value husband who's putting her needs first. And that, I think, is a big issue for a lot of us, where we get focused on ourselves more than really the relationship and how we can serve our partner or spouse. And when you put their needs first, it makes you better. And that's a mental hurdle, I think, for a lot of people because you don't understand it until you experience it. But when you
Well, I
do that,
think yeah,
it's a
I was gonna
game
say
changer.
with that, I think it's a lot of it is the programming that we're going through, right? Like when you early on you mentioned providing, right? And the programming that we're now seeing everywhere is, oh, women go to work, they can provide too, or the women providing for themselves, and that classic role of like man going to work doing like all the work coming home. The classic roles have deteriorated considerably. And
Absolutely.
I think that that's a piece that, when you get back to there's so much more out there to develop when you recognize like, okay, that's still my role and we can share that role, but like relying on that piece, it just makes you feel so like weak. Like,
Well, as a man, I think it's intrinsic in us, right? We're supposed to. I have the three P's, right? We're supposed to provide, protect, and preside. So if you're not doing those three, you're not fulfilling your role as a husband and leader of the family. And a lot of times, what's going to happen is the wife is going to have to step in and do some of your role, right? She's going to have to handle some of your responsibilities, and that's going to breed resentment because not only does she have to do her roles and responsibilities, now she's having to take on some of your work. That's not a recipe for success. I mean, look at the stats on marriage, right? 50% marriages end in divorce. And I think a lot of it is because, and it's not just all men, but it's a big portion of it, right? As a leader, if you're not pulling your weight, that's going to have a negative effect downstream. And if we could focus again, right, focus on our roles and doing our roles and responsibilities at the highest level we can, everything falls into line. Everything goes as it should be because now your woman can rest in her feminine energy, as they say, right? Because you're doing the masculine part of it. You're providing, you're protecting, you're presiding. So you're bringing in the money. You're providing the level of life that you feel you deserve, your family deserves. You're protecting your family, and not just physically, but emotionally, right? You're there. You're able to shield them from nonsense, from the stuff that's being pushed in the media, from all the Disney bullshit, similar to what you're mentioning, but also physically, right? You have to be a physical dominant force for a woman to feel safe, for your kids to feel safe. They don't feel safe with those, like I used to be, right? With the pencil arms and that little belly. That's not something that's going to protect much, right? But now that I am a physical force, I carry a different energy when I walk into a room. There's a much different feeling and a different energy that it really goes through my entire family. And that's because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. It's simple, but a lot of people struggle with it for some reason. And I was there as well. And I think a lot of it is because we don't think about it. We're not conscious of this and we're really focused on ourselves. But getting back,
well, I
like you
think
said, getting back to the traditional roles, I believe that's how it's supposed to be, right? God set us up that way and following God's plan again, right? Like listening to your conscience. When you do that and you align with it, good things happen in your life. You receive blessings, you receive favor, you receive positivity and positive energy, and you're operating at a higher frequency. And when you're in that higher frequency state, you attract more good, more positive to you. So it's a big thing, I think, for a lot of people to get their mind around initially. But if you just keep going, just like anything, right? If you don't quit and you keep going, you will get to where you're trying to go, just like any goal.
yeah, I think a lot of it too is this the simplicity. One, the simplicity scares people, right? Like, because it is simple. Like man, woman, it's simple. When we
Right.
when we boil it down to the facts, it's simple. It's not easy.
Right.
And the consistent chasing of the easy piece, like what can I do that there's no resistance towards, and sometimes you have resistance that's there, but it's not there because of why you think it's there, right? Like the things that
Right.
you're doing, you're not resistant in those, and I hark it back to your early days in the mortgage industry. Like the mortgage industry was trying to tell you something, like Patrick, go do something else, and
Right.
like you just didn't recognize that, and I think that's a lot of what we see in my industry, in the fitness industry, like everywhere, is people just like they're trying to find that easy route through, and like if they would just sit back and like, okay, let me take a break here, right? Like let me pull back a little bit and hear and recognize what's there, we might see it a
Right.
little bit different. And that when you mentioned the God-given stuff, that divine is so, it's like when you said it, I was like, I thought I was talking looking in a mirror. Like it was like that is exactly how I was thinking about that.
I mean, it's true. Like if you look at the vibrational frequency chart, the higher you get in there, the closer you get to that God vibe, right? That God level and love and all of that is where we need to be. And it's hard for a lot of people to get there because you can't give something you don't have for yourself, right? So if you don't have love for yourself, there's no way you can properly love your wife, your kids, or anybody else. And then there's no way you're going to be able to be loved by anybody else if you can't do it to yourself. So I think a lot of us need to start, like what you're saying, start with some self introspection, right? What am I doing? Am I in alignment? Do I feel right? Because you and I both know you can feel when something's off, right? You can be making money, you can be having all the flashy shit, you can be doing all this cool stuff. But at the end of the day, when you go home and you look at yourself in the mirror, you know something's off. And most of that is because you're not listening to your conscience. And like that would be the big takeaway I would say for me is really listen to what you are telling yourself. That is such a huge piece of becoming that person that you're supposed to be and really providing that value to your family that they need from you.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been really pushing towards this for this year, especially is, with people, they always want to add something at the new year, right? I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, and nobody ever talks about like what do we take away?
That's
Like
it.
if I'm gonna put something in, I've got to take something out, or now I'm overwhelming myself because now I have something that I have to do on top of everything I was already doing. So if we look at
Exactly.
it and we go, what can I pull away? It goes to that piece of you saying, like, listening to yourself. If I'm going to go put in a 45-minute workout and I subtract something that took me an hour, now I've got a 15-minute window. What am I doing with that? Am I pissing it away, scrolling on my phone? Am I staring at a stupid TV program that's literally programming my brain not to think how I want to think? Or am I
Right.
sitting with silence by myself and going, what am I actually thinking? What am I feeling? What, like, that? It's so crazy to think that like everybody's looking for what do I do? What do I do? And the answer is do fucking nothing. Like,
Well, it's really a process of removal, right? Everything that we have or everything that we need, we already have. It's already inside us. We need to remove the programming. We need to remove our poor habits. We need to remove our poor thought process and replace it with positive thoughts, positive habits, a positive approach to life. But that's already inside. So when we remove the negative shit from us, it allows that good, that positive vibe, that positive energy, the ideal individual to come to the forefront. The problem is most people don't see it like you're explaining it, right? It's oh, I need to add this, or oh, I should be doing that, or I should get this, or whatever. But it's not about acquiring that thing. It's about removing stuff so that you can become that person that has that life that you want. Right? I say all the time, it's about becoming your ideal individual. And that ideal individual is the person that has the life that you want. They have the relationships that you want. They have the business that you want. They have all the cool cars, the nice house, the watches, whatever it is that you want. But you can't focus on how to get those things. You have to focus on becoming that person that has those things, right? It's an attraction thing. Again, it's a vibe thing because once you become that individual, you're going to pull those things to you just because of who you are. And I think a lot of people, like you said, are focused on what can I buy? What magic pill? Like, think of it for weight loss, right? What magic pill can I take to drop 50 pounds in 2 days? Like, that shit's not real, right? You know what I mean? Or what magic supplement can I take to gain 50 pounds and be jacked in 2 weeks? That's not fucking real. Like, you have to put in the work and be consistent day after day after day after day for years in order to become that person. But if you're focused on that short-term fix, and it goes back to what you're saying earlier, it's that instant gratification. You're focusing on what you want now versus what you want more. And that's where a lot of people get thrown off, and especially when they're following a plan. They focus on, oh, I want this candy or this piece of cake right now, instead of, oh, I want to fit in that bathing suit this summer and look good in pictures and have my abs popping and have, veins pop, whatever it might be. But people sacrifice what they want most for what they want now. And that's a huge issue. And I was in that boat, right? That's how I got squishy and soft is, oh, I want to eat this double double or this 3x3 from In-N-Out. And I want to eat a 3x3 and a double double and a shake. And next thing you know, I've eaten 5,000 calories in one fucking meal. And your energy is directly affected. Like, it's just not a good situation to be in. So if we can focus on really becoming that person and elevating our value, life changes.
I think the scary thing there is the fact of removal, right? Because we've built up so many of these different things that are coping mechanisms for what we've created or what has been created by, a lot of times it's created in our childhood and we weren't even part of it. We were not even a
Absolutely.
party to a lot of the shit that we're dealing with. And so like challenging those beliefs can become so painful because you don't even fucking know where they came from. Like
Yeah.
my favorite question to people is literally like it's a confrontational question, and a lot of times people respond with anger and like fuck you, like don't talk to me anymore. Is like, why do you believe that?
Yeah.
90% of the time, nobody can tell you because you just don't fucking know. It's been something that's created. And so like tearing down through those, you're looking at so much stuff that you just don't know where it came from. That like, you know, there's a video out there, a speech by Eric Thomas, and he talks about the Millennium Tower in California, multi-billion-dollar building. Every condo was, you know, $3 to $6 million in it, you know, upwards of 12. And there was a story of a guy that accidentally dropped a marble in his apartment and it rolled in a circle and came back to him. And he's like, marbles shouldn't do that, right? And this is a $3 million condo. And he says, you know, they discovered those people that had that marble thing happen, they had to walk away from their $3 million condo. And the reasoning behind it was they went down 800 feet. Well, when you put 50 stories on top of 800 feet of top high end marble finishes and like Italian marble and all this stuff that's super heavy, there's
Right.
not enough foundation. They didn't go down far enough. They built it on sand. And there's so many marriages, there's so many relationships, there's so many like, and even self relationships that are just built on soft ground because we don't know what the facts are at the bottom. And so if we're able
Absolutely.
to scrape down, we can start building back those layers. And it's a scary process, and that's why nobody fucking does it.
Yeah, you're right. And we have to heal ourselves before we can help anybody else, right? So you have to confront the issues, whatever they are. And it is painful, but you have the pain of dealing with that and overcoming it, or the pain of not becoming the person that you want to be, not having the relationships that you want to have, not having the life that you want to have. So you have to evaluate what's more painful. Is it more painful to really confront this issue that you have temporarily, right? Because once you kind of overcome it, you can let it go most of the time. And now that pain it is what it is. It affected you, but it's made you stronger, right? Because you've overcome it. So now you have that mental fortitude, like, yeah, that was fucked up. It sucks. It really messed with me for a long time, but it also helped me develop this skill, this trait, and this other thing, which now I can use to make myself better. Now I can use to help people, or now I can use to provide more value to somebody. So you have to evaluate what's worse. I think for me, being the same person year after year after year and living that same life, that same year over and over for 50, 80, 100 years, however long you live, I think that's more painful than confronting whatever childhood trauma that we have. I think that is more painful. So, and some may disagree with that, right? But at the end of the day, you got pain one way or another. I would rather face the pain that's holding me back from becoming that person that I want to be for my family and creating the life that I feel they deserve. That's a pain that I'm going to go after. I'm not going to sit and dwell in the past, because the past is the past and you can't change what has happened to you. You can only accept it, deal with it, and overcome it. So I think a lot of people are stuck on that. And that's a great point, because until we actually confront it and deal with it and sit in that pain for a little bit and really just absorb it and say, hey, you know what, this happened, it was fucked up, but it is what it is. That I can't change it. I can only overcome it and figure out ways to better myself because of it. And I think a lot of people, if we could do that, it would help them immensely. It would help their relationships, because like you said, it's going to carry forward, right? If you don't deal with your emotional baggage, you're going to pass it on to your kids. So this issue that you have now inside yourself because of your childhood is not only going to affect you, your generation, and your kids. Unless your kids are conscious of it, it's going to affect that next generation. So this can be a multi-generational issue, because you don't want to step up and really just confront that pain and deal with it. And I know it's hard, but at the end of the day, is it harder to confront it and face it yourself, or to potentially negatively affect multiple generations after? For me, I will take the pain. I will sit in it. I will deal with it, rather than pass it on to my boys and have it go to my grandchildren, and however far it may go down. That to me is not acceptable, especially as a leader of the family and a man. Step up and handle your shit. It's going to suck a lot of times. It is what it is. That's a man's job, right? We're not here to be the rock stars. We're here to be that foundation. We're here to be that lighthouse and really shine and support and provide value to our family.
To me, that piece that you said, there's the ultimate definition of love, right? Like it's that ending of the generational trauma. I'll use a couple buzzwords in the industry, right? Generational trauma, that they're trying to pass off as a passive thing that's been passed down, when you and I both know that it's an active thing that gets passed down because they're not actively pushing back against it. They're just
Right.
letting it flow through. So passivity in itself becomes an active movement because you're actively choosing to take care of it.
Right.
So for me, like, that's my definition of pure love. Like, the reason that I've done a lot of the work that I've done, my wife dealt with a lot of shit for a lot of years because I didn't want to deal with it, right? So now my way of loving her is going, okay, I'm gonna deal with my own personal shit so that I can show up 100% for you. My future kids, I'm gonna show up 100% for you, and I'm gonna pass you only love. I'm not gonna pass you the stuff, the yelling, the screaming, the swearing at you, the don't do that. Like, I'm gonna allow you to explore things. I'm gonna allow you to do things so that you can be a kid and not have to
Right.
worry about all this adult shit. That's my job. Let me do that. And so
Absolutely.
I see that in your content. I see it in, like, just talking with you. I think that fires you up. You even, like, you swell up a little bit
I
when you
mean,
start talking about it.
definitely and don't get me wrong, like I had a great childhood, but everybody has certain things, right? Nobody is perfect. So I had certain issues with my dad, and I will not perpetuate those issues down to my kids. Uh, I will die before I allow that kind of shit to continue on. And it wasn't abuse, it wasn't anything bad, but there were certain ways of interacting and certain ways of being a parent that I can still feel if I think about it, right? Like silent treatment. He would go a few days without talking to us if he didn't approve of something we did. And that's fucked up for a kid. Like, you can't do that kind of shit as a kid is growing and they're trying to look to their dad and their mom for support and encouragement and reinforcement. And to have your dad just, you're like, hey, good night. And then he's like that, that's not a good thing. So there's no way in hell I'm going to perpetuate that kind of shit down onto my kids. Right. So there's, and that's really one of the main reasons why I do get so fired up about being the best individual for your family, because of the experiences that I had. My dad was a great dad. There were some issues where he could have been better, obviously, but I won't perpetuate the shit that was put on me down to my kids. Now, I may give them some other kind of complexes. You never know, because I push them and I want them to be the best they can be. But at the end of the day, as a dad, my job isn't necessarily to be my kids' friends, right? It's to make sure that I have 3 upstanding, high value men that lead their families properly. And if that leads to them not being my friend, I guess, as they're older, that's not what I want by any means. But if that happens, it is what it is, right? As long as they are a great leader for their family, they love their wife properly, they provide for their family, they love their kids properly, then I've done my job. Ultimately, I don't want that to happen. But I mean, I'm willing to take that risk because of the changes that I went through and how I saw that it directly affected my kids and my family. I have to do everything I can to make sure that they start at the point that I can get to, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? In that point of my evolution of becoming a better man, I need to give them that jump off from where I'm at that point, not from where I was when I started, when I was a man child and selfish and focused on myself. If I do my job properly, they won't remember any of that, right? They will see me as
So you
somebody.
don't have to.
Exactly.
Yep. Uh, I think that that's a fantastic way of viewing it. I think that, like I said, like, the reason you're here is because of what you put out into the world and that kind of stuff. I do have one question for you, and I like to leave kind of the ending as an action plan, or at least give somebody an action step, right? So you mentioned that somebody reached out to you and said that you weren't living to what your conscience was telling you.
Right.
Obviously, we can throw out, like, go find your purpose, live by your why, all the cliche shit, right? How did you take step 1 to getting to that? Obviously, step 1 is realization. So what's step 2? Like, when you recognize, like, you're right, I'm not, what did you do next?
It started as really me trying to get better physically. I wanted to be in better shape. But as I was doing that, I realized that I wasn't in shape mentally, if that makes sense. I realized that I was selfish And so really, so my morning process is everything to me. And I get up at 3, I give myself 15 more minutes this year. So I get up at 3:30 now, and I work from 3:30 to 6:30 on myself, because at 6:30 my kids are up, they're downstairs. There's no more time for Patrick. There's time for dad. And so I use part of that time in the morning to really just be quiet and listen to myself. I'll meditate, I'll pray, and then I kind of just think, right? And whatever comes into my head. But at that time, I had the realization that I wasn't who I needed to be. And that time alone really is huge. It allows that introspection, like we talked about earlier. And for me, I guess I say I heard God talking to me, but it was really just listening and knowing and feeling that you're not doing what's right. And in order to do what's right, you have to start with the foundation, right? Like we said earlier. And the foundation for me and for pretty much everybody is your health and fitness. If you are unhealthy and you are unfit, there's something else that's going on. That is an external reflection of your internal state. So if you're fat and out of shape, unhealthy, chances are there's some kind of mental reason why you're in that case. So by really trying to dial down on why am I doing this, what's going on, and really pushing myself to adhere to that blueprint that I had for my health, my fitness, and my nutrition, I was able to understand and uncover that it's not about me, right? So to answer your question, really just start working on yourself, right? Start somewhere, whatever it might be. I suggest, like I said, starting with the foundation. Start with your health, start with your fitness. And by going through your health and fitness and your nutrition, you're going to build a strong mindset. And when you have that mindset that you're starting to build, it's going to make you more self-aware. And you're going to see your shortcomings. You're going to see the areas of improvement that you need to work on. And then you go all in and you put everything you have behind getting better. And the goal should be 1% better every single day. And the way that you stay motivated, which I think motivation is bullshit, but people need motivation to start. But the way that you stay disciplined and motivated to your plan is you have to remember that your family is directly affected by what you do. So if you're not showing up, if you're not putting the work in to be better, if you're not filling them with love and energy, positive energy, you have work to do. They need you for that. And as a leader of a family, that's one of your primary roles. So I don't know if that answered your question. That was kind of a long-winded answer, but you have to start with self, right? I guess start with self, start with fitness, start with nutrition, and really start to build the discipline, because through that discipline with your nutrition and your fitness, you're going to become disciplined in every aspect of your life, which is going to really put your priorities into the proper order. And it's going to make you a better individual and a better leader for your family.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man. You've had a good time here. I could talk to you all day. Like I said, it's kind of, sometimes it feels like I'm talking into a mirror, and I'm sure it's the same for you with our messaging.
Absolutely.
So similar that it's exciting to meet somebody like-minded and
Absolutely.
be able to push in the right direction. So again, appreciate you. If you want to reach out to Patrick, I'll make sure that I'm tagging some of his social stuff here. He's a great dude. Pat, if you wanted to get in contact with you, what's the easiest or best way to go ahead and do that?
Best way is through Instagram. I put everything that I do from my morning process to I call it my preachings and my teachings, all is documented in my stories and on my page. So you can reach out to there, shoot me a DM. I'm open book. If you guys have questions, whatever it might be, feel free to shoot them over to me. I am here to really push, like I said earlier, push you guys to be the best that you can be, because that's what your family deserves. And so if I can provide you information that's going to help you overcome something or become better, that's what I'm here to do. So don't hesitate to reach out. I want to help.
Sounds good. What's your handle on Instagram?
It's the Level Up Dad.
Awesome. All right, man. Appreciate you. We'll definitely have you on again.